Thank you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good morning, Dan Gutierrez.
Morning, Mr. Keller. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Um, I'm, yeah, I'm participating in my life, or I'm participating in the adventure that I call my life.
Yeah,
That's what I'm doing.
me
That's how
too. Me too. And enjoying it immensely.
support you in that.
Um, I'd like to welcome also our podcast viewers. This is the Intentional Living podcast that Dan Gutierrez and I record as whenever we get a chance to do that. I also do one with our mentor John Donovan, and we're here to. In this particular podcast, we have a focus that has to do with something that Socrates said, lo these 2,500 years or so ago. And he said, the secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And Dan, this is something that you came up with, and I want to give you the credit for that.
Mm.
And that's why I do intentional living is to participate, like you said, in the creating of my life today in this moment and the next moment and the moment after that, and doing that as intentionally and mindfully as I possibly can. And one of the things that as you and I were chatting before the we began the podcast, one of the things that I think is true, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is that one practice that we can engage in to clear out the past so that we can focus on the present and the new, the future, is forgiveness practice. And I know that's a foundation of at least one of the world's major religions, Christianity. There's the story of the first thing Jesus said after they nailed him to the cross on Calvary and pulled the cross up upright. He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." So forgiveness is one of those things that at least we give lip service to it, but what does it actually mean, and how do we actually um, do authentic forgiveness? What are your thoughts?
Um, well, I've always kind of didn't understand what forgiveness was. I thought, I let people off the hook, and that was forgiveness. And I found that, uh, when I felt like I had to coerce myself into letting people off the hook, which I didn't like. I thought, what the hell is that? Forgive them for what for what they do, right? Like you were saying. And all it did was build resentment in me because there was nothing going on. I mean, I was still hanging on to the resentment or the feeling, and it's like, well, how do you forgive? How do you forgive? What is forgiveness? Let me think of that.
Well, and
And
why?
yeah, what good is it? People are always talking about forgiveness, and all that. And it's like, okay, so what the hell does forgiveness look like? If I don't know something, then let me see what it looks like. So, like everything that in the past, recent past here, it starts off with the intention. I intend to uh, see, feel, and hear forgiveness. You know, Um, so that's the journey and start of it. And I just started looking, what is forgiveness? Everybody's talking about it, but I don't see it. Is it something that, is not demonstrated? Uh, is it an act of something, somebody doing something? You see I see on TV, people, they're in the courtroom and it's sentencing day and the victim's family, comes up there and they forgive the the accused or I forgive you for
Perpetrator.
yeah, perpetrator. I forgive you, and it's like and it's like wow, okay. What does that do? Um, and who's it for? So through my journey, I come to figure out forgiveness for me is not about other people. Forgiveness is me um, having compassion for myself, uh, for um, staying or focusing on something that's created my suffering. And now I understand that I can let that suffering go. And that's the forgiveness, is like I'm no longer carrying the burden of it. Um, and like I said, the word forgiveness is an act of me having compassion and for myself, um, to literally let it go. I'm no longer creating my own suffering. I'm giving up something, or I'm not giving it up. I'm handing it over, or I'm just putting it down. So I no longer carry the mind game that affects me. So I forgive myself for having this resentment over the years of blame and judgment, my family of origin. Um, forgive mom and dad for their part in creating my mind that created my world to this point. And it allows me to free up energy to focus on creating something, like Socrates said, creating the new. Um, I'm no longer spending energy. I'm no longer putting resentment into a bank account that's depleting my bank account because I've got this auto pay that keeps coming up and taking money out of my account. Um, so I've let that go. For me, forgiveness is letting things go at a level where there's no more judgment, um, forgiving myself, you know, dealing with those inner voices that say I need to be, I should be, I have to be, and feeling that pressure, that burden that I drag around, um, and not knowing that I can put it down to free myself up from carrying this burden. Um, that it's in my power to do that. That's to me, that's what forgiveness is. I don't know if that aligns with what other people think, but it's where I accept myself for who I am and have that experience, knowing that I'm okay, that I don't have to be something else. I'm you know I'm good enough. Um, I'm worthy enough. I'm lovable enough. Um, and I can just put down all that self-talk, criticism. Um, that to me is forgiveness.
I once heard, I forget who it was. It might have been somebody like Sherry Huber, the Buddhist teacher that whose books we've used in the past. But somebody like her who said, "Forgiveness is when I decide to stop seeking revenge against somebody."
Yeah, or myself.
Yeah, because I was thinking as you were sharing, what does it mean? What has it meant in my own life, and what does it mean in my experience with other people to actually forgive? What is the activity of forgiveness, and how do we know that the activity has achieved what it's intended to achieve? And I like that one because I do believe for many of us that um, there is we do have a bank account of resentments, and I think that we learned that early on. I learned that early on. We didn't have a culture of forgiveness in my family. Even though I was raised Catholic, I went to Catholic schools, and so we were taught those things. We were taught that in the Lord's Prayer, there's a whole phrase about forgiveness, and so there's foundational stuff in the culture that I was raised in, kind of out there or officially. We all, of course, we forgive the forgiveness of sins and all those things, but at the same time, there's a culture of not just resentment, but nurturing resentments, piling them up, like you were saying, in that bank account. And I was doing this work a long time, Dan, before I realized that there's an emotional payoff to resentment. There's kind of a secret pleasure to resenting. Um, I may have even learned it early on in things that I might have resented about you, or things that I thought were about you, which were about me, because whether it was you or other people in our work together, I started noticing there was a part of me that didn't want to stop resenting, and that kind of raised the question of what the heck is that all about? And that's when I realized that if I'm being honest, there's something I get a reward for resentment. And if that's true, then that helped me understand why forgiveness is, at least when I initially started to take it on to forgive authentically and thoroughly and completely, why I found that difficult to do. Like it took more than words.
Yeah, yeah, forgiveness is just I don't know, when you start off, or when I started off, what I thought it was is not what it turns out to be for me. Um, the idea that there's a part of my psyche or whatever that wants to hang on to these things, and what do I have this process convoluted with? You know, it's there for a reason. Um, you know, Here again, it's like something that maybe the resentments are cloaked in. Take the word resentment out, and what is it? It's just a memory of something. And in that process, what does that memory serve me for? Uh, it's trying to protect me, the resentment, not to have that experience again. It's a trigger moment where these feelings and thoughts come back up. Um, and it's like, I need to I need to change my perspective of what's happening, and I see it as a survival mechanism that uh, developed, and it's running, and is it working for me anymore? Now that I'm aware that I have this, and it's like everything that starts in childhood. Um, I I don't know if it's a human characteristic that we all develop. Maybe some people don't develop, but does it develop out of trauma? Other people trigger me, and it takes me back to resentful. They make me fearful, uh, and it's like all of this stuff is going on, and as I moved on, I can let this stuff go, right? And letting it go, or no longer indulging in the pattern, or in the process of rehashing these things, triggering my fear, triggering anxiety, triggering, you know, I can let that go. I have the power to focus on letting that go.
So
I
how do
don't
you
have,
do that?
well, for me, it's become the awareness is using the accountability tree. It's where I find myself in the moment. I'm, I'm, I'm thinking these thoughts about myself. Um, I realized the other day that, and I had a conversation with a longtime friend last night, and he was there in my addiction, and we navigated our way through it, and in the addiction, I had all these resentments about me, you know, how I saw myself as an addict, and I'm less, yeah, I'm less than. There's something wrong with me, and as as my addiction, progressed, and eventually I got clean and sober. Years later, I come to realize that it wasn't because I was morally corrupt that I had an addiction. There wasn't something wrong with me as a human being. It wasn't a disease. It was my attempt to escape the pain that I was in that I wasn't aware of. And having the conversation with my friend last night, we actually got to talk about that. And we talked about all a group of us. We all hung out together. We were all either alcoholics or addicts of some form. And, the conversation came to, it's like, we're all a bunch of young men in pain who didn't understand what was happening. And we sought solace in a group of other young men who were doing the same thing, trying to escape the pain. And we bonded through that. And he goes, that's the first time I've heard an explanation of what we called partying. And I go, yeah. And our our viewpoint at the time was this is what you did, but we didn't understand what we were doing. We were escaping the pain together. So having that awareness years later, those things that I held against myself, I was able to let them go. I was able to see that was just me attempting to cope with my issues without any awareness of what I was doing. And I'm able to let it go and go, that addiction doesn't define me. It wasn't a moral failure on my part. It wasn't all these things. And it's just like being able to have that awareness and go, that I did the best I could at the time. And it's like I can let that go. I can see the truth. I'm holding these resentments against myself because I should have been something else. And it's like, I couldn't have turned out any other way based on what I was given to start with and the environment that I grew up in. All right. That's acceptance. I don't know if acceptance is forgiveness, but it feels the same thing. It may be a next level. I can let it go. I can put down um, the criticism, the resentment, the fear, and I can move on. And I've always thought, well, how do you know somebody's forgiven themselves? Do they what? And it's like, well, okay, maybe I'm going down the wrong road here. Um, it's not, how do you
That sounds like
know?
fun.
Yeah, well, it's like, how do you know that you've forgiven yourself? And for me, the the state that comes up is I can talk to my friend about what happened, and I don't get triggered by it. I can speak the truth, and I can see myself in a light, the light of truth, rather than this fallacy and fiction that I created to beat myself up. And it's like, yeah, I was just, we were all just seeking pain relief, and that's the truth. And there's nothing to forgive. I think that's it. There's nothing to forgive.
Well, in a world where, as we say in intentional living, there's nothing wrong, then of course there's nothing to forgive. But that I totally agree with you, and that's not necessarily a way that we experience things. And so, for me, I had to work through these kind of the way you're working through. You're sharing with us the process by which you work through this. And I think a key thing that you said that resonates with me is that we're dealing at the bottom line, we're dealing with pain and the hurt that we felt when somebody did something that made us feel abandoned, made us feel just hurt. And if that hurt didn't get healed, then it sort of lives in the darkness in our subconscious. And that's how it sort of turns the pain, we turn the pain outward instead of being internal and feeling it. we tend to want to project it back out on the perpetrator, the person who we think did it to us and had the power to do it to us. And particularly as little kids, we don't know any better. We don't know that nothing's wrong. We're not enlightened yet. And
No.
so, and like I said, if we didn't live in a family system where we were taught forgiveness, we were taught how to heal from that hurt. We were taught that we might actually that we might have felt pain. We might have felt something that uh, felt like death, possibly somebody turning his back on us, or somebody putting us down. Could be a family member, could be a teacher, could be a uh, I mean, little kids can be really nasty to each other
Yeah.
in that grade school period. So, in that whole early realm of childhood, any number of things could have hurt us. And if I and I didn't know how to process pain as a kid. It
No.
never occurred to me. I didn't live in the kind of world where I could go to my mom and go, so and so said something today, and that really hurt me. And I felt cut off, and I felt a stab of pain. No, I just sucked it all in. And I think that's where resentment gets born, is that there's unhealed pain, psychic pain, that eventually we have to get rid of somehow. And so resentment is like a projection of that pain that we try to put out on somebody else. The irony is, as you were implying in what you were saying, the irony is it doesn't work that way. We actually can't discharge pain by trying to give it away. It's still there. And
Yeah.
so this question of how do we know that we've forgiven ourselves, for me, involves being willing to honor and acknowledge the hurt and seek the healing of it. And I may need to go to that person and work something out to get it. I may need to do it in a group setting where I can tell the group what my experience is, what my resentments were. I may need to do it in a therapy session. I may need to do it in some kind of spiritual environment where, again, the truth is welcome. Even hard truth is welcome. And for me, that's the beauty of the accountability practice, is that when I speak a hard truth, that truth, uh, the energy that was associated with the fear of speaking that truth kind of just disappears. And that's how the healing begins for me. Is I can tell you something, and you and I have done this many times in our friendship. I can tell you something I'm afraid to tell you, and when you go, I'm glad you shared that with me. All of that fear energy just disappears, and that is evidence of healing. And like you said, when you no longer feel uh, anger, you no longer feel triggered by somebody or by an event or whatever that you had previously been unable to forgive, then what I would suggest is that there's healing of whatever hurt had happened to you, that the healing had happened. And the good news about this healing is and sometimes it needs to take some time and some repetition, but oftentimes just the letting go of the covering up and the pretense about it, and just telling the truth to someone else. And I think that's one of the steps in the 12 steps, is just speak the truth to another person.
Right.
I think it's speak the truth to your higher power and another person that has that releasing, healing energy.
Yeah. I agree. And I don't know. It just come to me just now is that the conversation's different. I don't talk about uh, I don't talk about the resentments anymore. The conversation changes, right?
Yeah, because
Well,
because the healing's there, so we no longer feel the anger, the energy, the resentment, the fear of telling the truth about ourselves. It's like it's all gone.
Yeah. It's like realizing there is no boogeyman,
Right.
right? Or the boogeyman is my creation. So how about instead of the boogeyman, I turn that concept into something else.
Right.
Uh, yeah. Or letting, yeah, that to me, yeah, what I was going to say is like, that's the, when somebody says, just let it go. And then you ask them, well, how do you do that? Well, you just let it go. Like, go figure it out.
Go to your room and figure it out.
Figure it out. It's like, just let it go. And it's like, don't offer me these platitudes and just let it go. I need instructions because I don't know how.
Well, exactly.
And that's the same thing with forgiveness, Just forgive people, and then you'll be all good. Or forgive yourself. I need an instruction book. To be interesting is I'm sure there's many books been written on how to forgive yourself. So um, here again is one of those things. It's just like I've drawn on information and everything else, and the bottom line is, for me, it's just like I can sit here and talk about my past and done and behaved like, and I can just you know uh, maybe forgiveness is I no longer need to defend it. I can sit here and tell you all the I've been an addict, I've been a criminal, I've been a violent person, and it's like okay, and I'm also a kind, loving, nurturing, loyal, trustworthy human being as well. And the way I feel right now, I think that's what forgiveness is. Uh,
I'd like to offer for the newcomer who may be watching this for the first time, or it's one of the first ones you've watched, that one way, there's probably, like you were saying, Dan, there's probably any number of ways to make forgiveness authentic. But one way that I know is to do the accountability practice, and the accountability, and particularly in a group setting. And so, if anybody who's watching who has not had the opportunity to participate in an intentional living meeting, there are four of them every week, and Dan facilitates one on Monday nights, and I facilitate one on Wednesdays. And our mentor, John Donovan, facilitates on Saturday mornings, and our colleague Rodney Jones facilitates on Thursday nights, all Pacific time. And information on how to join these meetings, which are all on Zoom, will be at the end of the podcast. But the ability to sit and tell the truth about what's behind my unwillingness to forgive, I found, is the road to forgiveness. Being willing to ask, what's my part in what happened? What's my resentment here? What's my projection onto the other person? To be able to, again, as facilitators, we'll help guide people through that process if they want. But that courageous willingness to look um, without trying to sugarcoat anything, to look at our own role in all these things, as fearful as that might feel when we first set out to do it, and I can still remember being afraid to say certain things in meetings with John, um, nonetheless turned out to be the most liberating activities that could lead me to genuine forgiveness, to genuine letting go. Letting go meaning, as I think you were saying earlier, that the feeling of resentment, anger, disappointment are gone. And like you said, I can now have a different conversation with the person against whom I held the resentment. And that's the evidence that forgiveness has been complete, has been authentic. Or if I no longer turn rage against myself anymore and say, "Oh, you idiot, how come you did this?" or if I've noticed that that ceases to happen very frequently, then I know that I've actually let go. So I invite people to come to a meeting and uh, say, come to a meeting, say, I want to learn about forgiveness. I want to learn, I can't forgive my mom for X, Y, or Z, or I can't forgive my husband or my wife for whatever. Come and work on that in a meeting and see if you can't have that direct experience in your own body and mind and soul to actually finally have that liberating experience of forgiveness, of letting go.
Yeah. Well, I like one thing that I've learned is no matter what it is, every for me, no matter what it is, each thing that I focus on leads me to myself.
Yep.
Whether it's resentment, uh, forgiveness, acceptance, all these things in the beginning maybe motivated out of a sense of pain or fear, and in the end, what they wind up doing for me is become pain release. Um,
And
it's,
can't
and
say
that and
fairer than that.
um, restores me to this state that I'm in right now, which is a sense of calm, no no self agitation, no external agitation. I'm just in the present moment, and I'm thinking that this is the body doing what it needs to do, is healing to get me back into the state where I'm feeling calm, um, and letting my body heal itself. But we call all these things resentment, uh, anger, fear. Um, but moving toward these things, moving toward our pain, and I can only speak for myself, is that this is the end result. Um, yeah, yeah, and I do want more. What is it I want? I intend to uh, increase my capacity for uh, self acceptance, forgiveness, and peace.
All right. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end our conversation here. So I appreciate your time. And again, for anybody that would like to learn more about this experience of forgiveness of self or others, please feel free to join us in a meeting, and be happy to work with you on that. And any last words before we wrap it up?
Um, the quality of my life is determined by the focus of my attention. Um, Pay attention to where your attention's going.
Well said. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Marty.
See you at the next one.
You bet.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Appreciate it.